Hey guys, I'm just here just to clarify the skills of Jake Paul. And I know that sounds real bad coming from a amateur boxer and an actual fighter. I mean, actual guy that went out and compete. I mean, I compete in wrestling and also boxing. And I know boxing fundamentals when I see it. And Jake Paul, he has some legitimate skills. I mean, the guy throws shots behind the knee. The guy can move. He's fairly athletic. And for someone in the sport for a short period of time, I think been training for about 4 years, he shows some pretty good skills. And the opponents that he's been matched against, I know that they're not boxers, but in comparative to other world class boxers and his first five fights in comparison to world class boxers like Floyd Mayweather, to Tyson, to even that Tyson Fury guy, or heck, I would even throw in Canelo inside there. His first five fights in comparison to them, even though they're not boxers, but they still hold. I mean, Askren and Tyron Woodley, they still hold championship type mindsets. They're not wash or cans or anything like that. And for Jake Paul to go inside there in his first five fights against them instead of going against something like that in his first maybe 15 fights, it's pretty impressive. I mean, impressive to a boxing novice. Actually, just impressive in the boxing professional caliber in general. And yeah, Tyron Woodley's not a professional boxer. I know that. But the fact that Tyron Woodley holds multiple titles and he's listed as one of the greatest welterweights of all time in UFC, and also that Ben Askren, even though he did get knocked out by Masvidal, he's still a world class Olympic um, athlete who's out there and competing in hands against someone who is a runner-up novice boxer, just like any other boxer that was a novice boxer, like Floyd, um, Canelo. But I'm just saying he's not. I'm not saying Jake Paul is a Canelo or Floyd caliber boxer, but I'm saying the roadmap that every pro boxer's taken to become the greats has always been to fight cans and to fight lower caliber fighters to build up their record. And what I'm saying is that Logan Paul is doing the same exact thing that the greats have done. They fought cans and they fought low caliber boxers. But in retrospect, comparing Logan Paul's first five fights to Floyd's, to Canelo's, to Tyson Fury's, to Deontay Wilder's first five fights, his list of resume in his first five fights are far more impressive than any pro boxer I've ever seen. I mean, just the combined records of his fights. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, his combined records of his fights. It's like 0-5. If you look at it just in the professional boxing sense. But if you actually look at it a little bit more and you investigate, a high level caliber MMA bout, the amount of boxing IQ that a professional MMA fighter has at the highest level, I would compare that to someone who has a intermediate understanding of boxing and athleticism. So we're not dealing with like someone that's like, oh, I don't know boxing. Like, what's that? Like, no, like these MMA guys know boxing at least at the level of not being called a can. And they know boxing enough where if I have Logan Paul, I mean, sorry, Jake Paul, who's a novice at boxing, I can't then criticize Jake Paul for taking these bouts when he's a novice boxer himself. Like, that's why I get so mad when I hear people say, well, how come Jake Paul doesn't fight a boxer? And it's like, did a boxer, like a real boxer, like a Floyd Mayweather or a Canelo or a Deontay Wilder or any world champion boxer who went through the Olympic rates fought an actual boxer their first 10 bouts? No, they didn't. I mean, they fought boxers who had like records of like 8 and 30 losses and stuff like that. But you can't clarify and tell me that's an actual boxer. My dad, who's like 68 years old, could go out and box and and attain a record of 8 and 68. I mean, that's not hard. That's not being clarified as a boxer. And people comparing and saying that Jake Paul isn't a boxer, even though the guy only has 5 fights. 5 fights. You can't detail and call someone a non or not. I mean, a boxer, a non-boxer on 5 fights and talk trash about them at 5 fights. Because honestly, all the greats 5 fights are trash, including the great Floyd Mayweather. But I respect Floyd Mayweather in the sense that he's the only look serious. He's the only actual high level boxer, real boxer, who has called out the Paul brothers. And the Paul brothers had made jabs to the Fury family, who dropped out, to Canelo, who doesn't seem to want to even take the fight. But for whatever reason, Floyd Mayweather is the only pro boxer out there who takes on challenges of any cross sport. And he's like the embodiment of boxing, Floyd Mayweather. And he's the only guy who would take these out of mixed martial arts competition boxing matches with Tishin Han, with the Paul brothers, with Conor McGregor. I mean, all these other boxers are kind of scared, like as if, oh, if I go out there and fight, I'm gonna make him look good because if I just take one jab, it's like, no, like, dude, I mean, honestly, I'm just sick of tired of like people saying that saying for Jake Paul to fight a actual boxer, but then no actual boxer wants to fight him. Actual boxers are keeping their mouth shut. It's like, oh well, I can't fight him because the sport of honor or something like that. And it's like, really? I mean, you guys fix fights, and I mean, you guys fix fights 1 and 2. You guys fight these rookie, no good. We already know A side, B side fights, and you guys won't fight a YouTuber who has 0 amateur fights and 5 pro fights, and who's doing all the marketing for you. I mean, come on, it's easy money. I mean, that's easy money. Like, I don't understand it though, and especially Conor McGregor and Masvidal. Like, bro, if he's light work, then fight him. I mean, look, I give Floyd his credit for fighting Tishin Han, who's, I mean, the guy is like 40 pounds under though, but he fought him in Japan, where the odds for him is not that favorable. And even his expedition fight, he still, has pride out there. He took the fight, and it wasn't even that much of a payday. He only made a couple $1,000,000. But Floyd's a real one. Floyd's a real one. But lastly, I just want to talk about Jake Paul and his marketing. Jake Paul marketing is really well. Like, the guy talks trash. He's classy and quotable. That one line when he was at Tyron Woodley's press conference, right? And he was like, probably he was in ski mask, right? And he was like to Tyron Woodley, "Hey, look, this time there won't be a next time. I won't save your life." That was the best line of that press conference. But aside from that, Logan Paul. How can I say it's Logan Paul? So Jake Paul, fuck Logan Paul. But Jake Paul, I don't know what his next fight's gonna be. I think maybe he's gonna fight Anderson Silva. I mean, that'd be a next great fight. I mean, as far as like a real boxer's test, I think Anderson Silva would probably be a good pick for his next fight, and it makes sense. And that's another thing, Anderson Silva, like the guy was an MMA fighter, like 40 something ancient years old, right? And he's out here beating Canelo. He's beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a boxing match, and no one seems to even highlight that. Like, dude, this you got like a MMA fighter who had a losing record for the past couple years, right? Beats the shit out of a world class young athlete in the boxing room. No one took credibility. His dad disowned him though. It's like, and then the same year, I mean, you had Artem Lovov. No, year before, you had Artem Lovov beat Paulie Malignaggi in a bare knuckle boxing match, which it's bare knuckle boxing, but dude, it's boxing. Like, come on now, like you're still throwing the hands and you're still being a pugilist. Like, it's not a completely different sport, and for Paulie to get embarrassed like that, that just says something about the sport of boxing. When boxers lose against non-boxers, especially against Artem. Like, I mean, Artem, I know against nothing against Artem, but he's trash. I mean, he goes hard. I mean, I respect him, but the guy's trash. I mean, you know. But aside from that, hopefully they get that fight together with Anderson Silva and Jake Paul. And until then, you know, guys, thank you for watching the video and subscribe, hit the like button because you can't really hit the dislike button anymore. They took it away, but it's all good. Peace out.